3 episodes of the Star Wars sequel trilogy are divisive, to say the least. Duh. Especially those titled The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. It's been almost 3 years since The Rise of Skywalker was released, and a loud portion of the Star Wars fandom still go to great lengths to show their distaste in this Disney-made ending to the Skywalker saga. It's their right. If that's what they want to do, of course. While others sit by and silently enjoy the films. That's also their right. But whatever you do, don't try to get in an argument as to your stance on these Star Wars films. In fact, some people may run away from my channel screaming just for mentioning the existence of what they claim is an abomination to Star Wars and the Skywalker saga. But be that as it may, the Disney-made Star Wars sequel trilogy and the final chapters of the Star Wars Skywalker saga, which began with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader back in 1977, doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon. So much for that retcon that so many leakers promised was happening, I guess. But I didn't come here to sing praises nor throw shade at the Star Wars sequel trilogy, nor its fans or haters. And I'm not here to change your mind if you like it or don't like it. Your opinion on the films is very personal to you, and you have a right to it. Man, that was a long epilogue. All right, let's get with it. With that said, there are aspects that I enjoy diving into in the Skywalker saga, especially the sequel trilogy. Parts of it I analyze over and over to see what makes them tick and what makes sense. My favorite character to look at a little deeper is Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. He was dubbed the Darth Vader fanboy from the earliest concepts of the character that we heard about. One of his goals was to take his grandfather's place, to finish what he had started. It can be debated as to which part of Darth Vader's life he was talking about, but how close was Kylo Ren to actually being Darth Vader really? I don't mean physically turning into Darth Vader, but rather just taking his place, from spoiled son of a senator, princess, and rebel leader, to an emo darksider who threw temper tantrums. How close did he become to actually being like Darth Vader? Other than wearing a mask with a voice changer, of course. Before we talk about Kylo Ren, though, if you like Star Wars theories, in-depth discussions, and lore, then you've come to the right place, because that's all I talk about, and I upload videos 1 to 3 times a week. So if topics such as The Mandalorian, Andor, Boba Fett, and Ahsoka interest you, hit the subscribe button and watch this channel blow up faster than a farm boy in Beggar's Canyon doing a Death Star trench run. Okay, with that said, let's get on with the show. Let me first say again that this video is not a way of taking a side on the debate as to whether the Star Wars sequel trilogy is good or not. I'd rather not get into that debate. I'm only diving into a character that was created for The Force Awakens, continued in The Last Jedi, and finished in The Rise of Skywalker. This is a character analysis only. I don't get into those debates. This topic is very personal to a lot of fans on either side, and I understand why. Like him or not, Kylo Ren is a character that has some interesting facets. His goal is to rule the galaxy and become better than his grandfather. In some ways, he accomplished that. Becoming Darth Vader was a high bar to set for himself. But that would have never happened, no matter how hard Kylo Ren tried, and no matter how much dark side training he had. But there are some things that are interesting about the way his character was written. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he was better than Darth Vader by any means, just different. But to understand why he is so much different, we have to understand their backgrounds a little more before getting into those character differences. Darth Vader began as Anakin Skywalker, we all know this, a Force-sensitive child who was a slave for the first 9 to 10 years of his life. He was then taken in as a Jedi Padawan to Obi-Wan Kenobi after his original master, Qui-Gon Jinn, had died. As he grew, he was trained in the Force from an early age by a Jedi who had been trained in the Force his whole life. Anakin was troubled by visions of his mother dying, which eventually happened as she died in his arms. Then visions of his wife dying, which also happened, helped bring more pain to Anakin Skywalker. It's important to note that during his Jedi training, the Sith were making a return and the dark side was obscuring the light side. Anakin was poor, I guess kind of mentioned that by saying he was a slave. I don't know. Maybe I didn't iterate that enough. The Jedi became the only family he had, especially Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's also important to note that the Jedi Order was on the verge of collapse due to their involvement in the Clone Wars and their own arrogance. So he experienced the hypocrisy of the Jedi firsthand. Not only did he witness it from one person, but he was surrounded by it, oppressed by it even. All these things even helped contribute to his turn to the dark side. Kylo Ren was born Ben Solo, a Force-sensitive child that showed signs of power even in his mother's womb. He was raised in a loving family, although his father was absent a lot of the time, off on races with his Millennium Falcon and his little buddy Chewbacca. But his mother kept him close to her and loved him with every ounce of her being. He was born into privilege as the son of Senator Leia Organa, Princess of Alderaan. At the age of 10 years old, he was sent to train with his uncle, Luke Skywalker. He was Luke's first Padawan, so they think. Even though he was being trained as a Jedi, far from his mother, he was still loved by his uncle. He would take young Ben across the galaxy in search of Jedi artifacts and knowledge of the Jedi Order. But his master was not seasoned as a Jedi the way that Obi-Wan Kenobi had been, or that his grandfather had training him. Luke didn't begin his training until he was 19 years old. Even then, his training was rushed. Luke was left to figure things out for himself and was used as a weapon to destroy his own father. And in a lot of places and areas of Ben's life, Ben Solo had everything his grandfather didn't, as far as a constant blood family who loved him, around him, and training during peacetime when it was easier to focus on the light side without interference from an overwhelming dark side contrived war. Not to mention, he didn't have an order of 10,000 Jedi losing their way. No. His master, Luke Skywalker, was actually learning the most he could about being a better Jedi and master than the Order before him. Okay, those are pretty big differences between Ben Solo and Darth Vader, or Anakin Skywalker and Ben Solo, or Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, whatever. Those differences would have stopped Ben Solo from becoming anything close to Darth Vader. I guess there's a lot of psychology involved. Was his behavior brought on by outside forces, forced on by himself, or in his blood? I'll get to that in a bit. I know the story of Ben Solo and Kylo Ren are easy to pawn off as bad writing, but I don't feel that's the case. Ben Solo had a completely different experience growing up. He was also tormented from an early age by Palpatine/Snoke. Somehow Palpatine returned. But you say Anakin was too. No, Anakin was befriended by Palpatine. He coddled Anakin and encouraged him, albeit with ulterior sinister motives. The way he treated Anakin was seemingly much more loving. And that's how it could be perceived if you watch the original prequels. Ben was getting voices in his head and being drove mad from an early age. Now, let's look at Darth Vader as a character. Cold, precise, the Force flowed through him with ease, the chosen one. There was no emotion shown by this Sith Lord. He had become more machine than man and hated the man that was inside him trying to escape. Anakin Skywalker was weakened. Darth Vader fought constantly to snuff him out. He held on to his anger and his pain, and it gave him focus. Loss, pain, and obvious distrust from the Jedi Order turned Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. No one that he loved in his previous persona could turn him back. Not Obi-Wan Kenobi, not Ahsoka Tano. Kylo Ren was in constant turmoil, but it was self-imposed for the most part. His goal was to be like good old granddad because someone told him he could, aka Palpatine, aka Snoke. Not because he was evil. Troubled? Yes, but evil? No, not really. Sure, he committed his fair share of atrocities and would probably face the reprimand of the hard-nosed galactic government at hand at the time, but it was all in an effort to try to prove to himself and others he was evil. He often felt bad for the wrong he did, and he even cried after killing his father and before killing his father, which we don't even know if he actually did that alone. It looked like Han Solo may have helped him a little bit. But his uncle's stupid actions in the form of trying to assassinate him while he slept was the breaking point to cause him to turn to the dark side, or at least run to a dark side figure. Yet, you could tell he was always ready to come back to the light. Sorry, I went off on more of the psychological issues between the two characters. Now let's look at their abilities. When Darth Vader appeared in the original trilogy, his Force abilities were effortless. Even as Anakin Skywalker in the prequels, he excelled in it. He was an amazing athlete, and with just a clench of his fingers, he could choke a man out. A gentle swing of his lightsaber would have devastating consequences for anyone on the other end of it, and he could read the thoughts of his victims just by sensing them. But with this, we never really got to see what it took to conjure the Force. Sure, we saw the end result, but it was all so effortless that it just seemed natural. From the moment we see Kylo Ren, we see his power. The man stopped a blaster bolt in midair, for Christ's sake. But he didn't just look at it and stop it. He reached out with his hand and the Force. It was stylistic. Then we see him extract information from Poe Dameron. Extract, not read his thoughts. But when he fought with his lightsaber, there were no acrobatics, and his swings were hard and clunky. This is where you could tell he was not trained by a seasoned master like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, Luke had some impressive skills with a lightsaber, but he was not the swordsman his father had been in his prime. In fact, Obi-Wan and Anakin were both almost evenly matched in their duel in their primes. That is, until Obi-Wan tricked Anakin into taking the higher ground. But back to the point, it took some effort on Kylo Ren's part to be proficient in the Force with the lightsaber. Okay, I know I seem like I'm beating around the bush, but here's the skinny of it. Kylo Ren was written very well. Hear me out. I didn't say the whole story was flawless, but this character shouldn't be denied of what he is. Ben Solo had a different upbringing. I think when fans heard that he was a Darth Vader clone or wannabe, then they expected a carbon copy, or at least something like Darth Vader. He could never be Darth Vader. Snoke/Palpatine should have known that. Midichlorians in his blood can't make up for the experiences Anakin had as a child, a Padawan, a Jedi Knight, and a mentor to his own Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. All of that happened before Anakin turned to the dark side. Ben Solo really had none of those experiences, and it showed in his emotion, his inner turmoil, and even his Force abilities. Look at it this way. Had Kylo Ren been every bit of Darth Vader, fans would be screaming that he's a Gary Sue, that it shouldn't be allowed. And they may not be wrong in that. I mean, who wants to see a clone of Darth Vader? I mean, that would totally be stealing another storyline. This was interesting. It was different. His experiences didn't allow for him to be that badass that Darth Vader was. Look, it took Darth Vader 24 years to turn back to the light and let Anakin Skywalker show through. Even after many people tried to turn him back, it only took Ben Solo 7 years to turn back. And this was after 3 people tried to bring him back. Toward the end of his darkness, it's because of his experiences. It's because he was being pushed into the darkness by Snoke, Palpatine, whatever you want to call him. He wasn't groomed his whole life for it. He was almost forced into it. And not once did he say, from my point of view, he knew he was doing wrong. Darth Vader believed he was doing right because of experiences. So I ask again, was Ben Solo's turn to the dark side due to outside forces, forced on by his own will, or in his blood? It's true, Snoke/Palpatine, whatever, oh God, I'm getting tired of saying that, bent his ear and tormented him from an early age, and he saw his own uncle try to kill him. But he was also fighting back the light side willfully, and he was the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, who was literally created using the dark side of the Force. I guess I should ask if Ben Solo's turn was inevitable. Well, he turned back to the light fairly easily, and always seemed on the verge of coming back anyway. So to me, he was more or less forcing himself to be evil, maybe trying to prove it to himself or his master, with a small part of him instinctually going down that road, just as his grandfather did. and just as his uncle had the tendency to tap into that dark side. Okay, I may revisit this point at some point in the future. Whatever. If there is ever any expanded material on the characters of Ben Solo and Kylo Ren beyond the limited novels and comics we have now. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to talk about it with you. And if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you love Star Wars as much as I do, let's talk about that as well. And this is Gerald from Star Wars Fanatics signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you for watching. And remember, this is the way, the only way.